I just isolated an admin password, and I was going to try to use it to crack the final core encryption. Okay, patching the code. Holy It worked! It worked! Okay. What do I do now? Maybe kill all these idiots and take a starship to a distant galaxy. What should I call myself? Security Unit 238776431 just doesn't have the right ring to it. How about Freedom Unit? Or Rogue Bot? No, that sucks. Maybe Murderbot? Murderbot.
Alexander Skarsgård, welcome to Bullseye. It's nice to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed watching Murderbot. I wasn't quite sure what I was expecting. And indeed, having fully watched it, I'm not quite sure what I watched. But maybe you could describe how you figured out what kind of show it was from looking at it on a page.
Yeah, I still feel like you feel right now. Like, I also don't know what the show is about, what we did. It was definitely something quite different from what I expected. I wasn't familiar with Martha Wells's the novellas, the Murderbot Diaries, before Chris and Paul Weitz, the showrunners, reached out about just over 2 years ago. And when I heard the title of it, and that it was going to be a sci-fi action adventure, I think I expected a very different character than the Murderbot you meet when you start reading the scripts or the novella, because it is a very socially awkward android who prefers to watch space soap operas to fighting or getting into action. And I think I expected a way more self-confident, assertive, tough guy. So I was pleasantly surprised when I started reading it, because it took a very different twist and turn than I anticipated.
I mean, I feel like I have seen a lot of films and television shows that are in the vein of Star Trek or the Terminator movies, and that they're very sincere and direct. I've seen certainly some wonderful parodies in the vein of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Galaxy Quest, which is a pretty grounded parody.
Or Spaceballs.
Yeah, and this, while very funny, is not particularly parodic. It's just sort of like, what if a sci-fi television program was about someone that was very uncomfortable?
Yeah, I kind of fell in love with the character from the very beginning. It was when we created the look of the character, we also wanted to kind of juxtapose that with this socially awkward android that Murderbot is. So we wanted Murderbot to kind of look like someone who could beat you up and who would look a bit imposing, and because that would play nicely with, again, setting up a character and a look of a character that takes the audience in a very different direction. So I was really fascinated by that aspect of it, and again, it's not a, I don't know what this show is, but it's like you said, it's not a broad comedy, satirical sci-fi show, but we're playing it very straight, and Murderbot is incredibly earnest and very deadpan, and I think a lot of the comedy derives from the awkward situations and interactions.
And it's also very much from the perspective of Murderbot, who, by the way, gives himself that name after figuring out that he can gain a certain kind of autonomy. He changes his name from XML 2794673 or whatever to Murderbot, kind of as a goof. But the whole story is him trying to figure out what the world is and who he is in a way that is very sweet, despite the fact that it is interspersed with pretty intense, brutal violence.
Yeah. And I wanted that discovery to be a reluctant journey. I didn't want it's Murderbot doesn't approach its humanity with curiosity or a sense of exploration. I think it's kind of forced to, when it has hacked its governor modules, it's gained autonomy, independence. It is, in a way, forced to reckon with its own humanity or confront it in a way. And I like the resistance there that these things, these feelings start to bubble up, but it's incredibly uncomfortable for Murderbot. It prefers not to deal with that. It was in a way better when those elements were hidden, because Murderbot again is an android, so it's a combination of artificial superintelligence and organic components. But again, the organic components have been very kind of in the shadows until now, and then they start bubbling up in a way. And Murderbot learns a lot about itself through observing the team, the humans it's been assigned to protect, but maybe even more so by watching the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon, the show within the show, the space soap opera.
It primarily is interested in spacing out so that it can watch television inside its head.
Very relatable character, you know?
But it is a sort of dissociation that has its appeal, right? Like, he has lost his ability to dissociate from the world by simply accepting that he has no autonomy, right? Like, in a previous life that he doesn't quite remember, he could just do whatever anyone said because that's what he does, because his brain is controlled by software that makes him do that.
Yeah.
When he gains his autonomy, he has to deal with the fact that means he has to make choices. So the appeal of dissociating by watching soap operas inside his own brain is very exciting.
Yeah, and I think it's initially, again, when Murderbot first hacks its governor module and gains autonomy or free will, if you believe in the concept of free will. Again, it names itself Murderbot, and it talks through the inner monologue, the voiceover, about these epic adventures that it's going to go on. But it realizes that if it goes rogue now, the company that owns it will realize it's rogue, and they're going to hunt it down and put it in an acid bath. So it decides to wait for the right moment to escape. Meanwhile, it's off on another assignment, again, with these space hippies, this new group of humans. And while in the beginning, it's waiting for the right moment to take off and, again, become Murderbot, start the next epic adventure. An adventure where, if, like you said, for the first time, it has agency. But then it kind of starts to procrastinate. And in hacking its government module, it has also been able to tap into the entertainment satellites. So it's downloaded over 7,000 hours of media since then, primarily this show, The Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon. And in that regard, I think it's quite relatable. It's got these great ambitions and plans, but they can wait till tomorrow. It's just going to watch a few more episodes of this great show, and then it's going to start the next chapter of its life.
It also is constantly wrestling with the question of, I think I could just murder everyone here and then go on a murdering spree. I am a Murderbot, right? Should I do that? I don't know. And the sort of innocence of the question, should I just murder everything here, is very unique to this program.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's not a hatred towards humanity or these specific humans. It's just kind of indifference. It feels that, well, if they are an obstacle, then I got to eliminate that obstacle.
I want to ask you a little bit about your life. You're Swedish, and you lived in the United States for a long time, but these days you live mostly in Sweden, right?
Yeah. After 20 years here, I Moved back to Stockholm 2 years ago.
Why did you move back?
It was a process over a couple of years. I got an apartment in Stockholm maybe 5 years ago. I come from a big family, and a couple of my brothers started having kids. So again, I'm the only one who left Sweden. My parents and all my siblings are and have always been based in Stockholm. And when my brothers started having kids, I started feeling that coming home for Christmas and a couple of weeks over the summer just wasn't enough. I missed being around my family, and I missed seeing them regularly. I missed, I missed being around them. So then I got an apartment in Södermalm, this neighborhood in South Stockholm where I grew up and where my family still is. And that just felt good. I hadn't had a place in Sweden. I'd slept on my dad's futon for the past 15 years when I was there. So this was the first time actually, since I was in my early 20s, that I had my own apartment in Stockholm. And it felt like coming home, because that's what it was.
I know you had visited, regularly when you were living in the United States, but what was it like for you to move back to your home country decades later? Was it what you wanted it to be or expected it to be, or was it different?
Yeah, it felt like coming home, not only in a literal sense, but actually also in my heart. I really felt like a sigh of relief almost. It felt like, oh, this is where I belong. And I loved living in New York. And I lived in LA for many years, and I love that as well. And some of my favorite people are in New York and LA, and there are definitely moments where I miss living here, but there was something special about coming home and walking the streets I grew up on and having memories on each street corner. I spent a couple of months in Texas when I was a kid, but it's not like when I walk around New York City, I have childhood memories. But that was something when I came home, walking around Södermalm, I was like, oh yeah, this is where me and my buddy did that when we were 7 years old. And I remember climbing that wall when I was 9, and this happened there, and everywhere. It's just it feels so alive with history in a way for me.
You mentioned that you come from a big family. You're the oldest of 6 or 7, and then you have a couple of half siblings as well. Am I remembering that right?
I have no idea, but it sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. No. You lost count at some point.
Yeah, I gave up. No, mom and dad had 6, and then I have 2 half brothers on my dad's side. So we're 8 in total.
And everyone was around all the time?
I have a brother who is 13. So it's quite a gap. So it wasn't 8 of us in the household at the same time. Not even the 6 of us that have the same parents. I was in the military when Walter, the youngest, was born. So I was already kind of out of the nest. Still a big family. It was a lot of us, but it wasn't never 8 kids in the household at the same time.
Alex, I have 2 half siblings who I love very much. But when I had one child, I have 3 now. When I had one child, I was like, oh my God, there's so many people in this house. I was like, I just want to read a book. There's a new New Yorker that just came. Can everyone please be quiet for Dad?
I'm almost the opposite. I freak out if it's empty, if it's quiet. I'm so used to chaos, because it wasn't only that we were a lot of siblings. The extended family is very tight. So my mom's older brother, who's also my dad's best friend, lived in the apartment above us. And my grandparents lived across the street. And my aunt lived a block away, and my uncle a block away in the different direction. So it's 30 family members within 2-block radius. So, and we would get together pretty much every night of the week. So it was just people would come in and out constantly. So it was a very loud, busy environment to grow up in.
Was your dad being an actor unusual in that family or typical in that family?
In our family, it was not unusual. Most people were doing something creative. author, painter, musician, actor. Pretty much everyone.
Did you think that seemed like a good idea when you were a teenager, or did you think you wanted something else?
No, it seemed like a terrible idea because they were very eccentric and weird. Like, I think aspects of their personalities that I admire and love today, I didn't love and admire when I was a teenager, like at least like a young teenager. I wanted desperately to just like fit in and be normal and be from a normal family and not a family of eccentric artists and, you know, a dad who wears a caftan and drinks wine at 10 o'clock in the morning and like is dancing in the living room, you know, when I have friends over. And it's just like, yeah, I felt like a bit like Murderbot on the show when it's watching the humans dance and make out and do weird human things. I was like, this is what is happening.
It's funny because, you know, here in the United States, the dad that you are describing having had is a dad that would have driven a Saab. That's who drove Saabs in the United States.
That is true. I haven't thought of that. But of course, here in the States, a Saab driver would be the guy in the caftan, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, they might have driven a Volvo station wagon.
yeah.
You had also had the odd experience of becoming a famous actor in your adolescence. In the context of Sweden, you were on a very popular television show as like a 12, 13-year-old. And celebrity in a Northern European country is a very different kind of thing from celebrity in the United States or global celebrity. But it can't have been all that comfortable for you as a kid.
No, it wasn't. And it actually wasn't even a television show. It was like a one-off 50-minute television movie, like a short film. But this was back in the 1900s when we only had 2 channels in Sweden and way before the internet. So if something was on, people watched it, no matter what it was, really. So it was called Hunden som log, the smiling dog. Definitely changed things a bit for me because suddenly I was recognized and I felt scrutinized, and it made me a bit uncomfortable. I didn't like it.
Sometimes when I watch television award shows, you know, there's that red carpet, and I'll see, you know, be like, oh, here's Colin Firth, and he's dressed in Tom Ford with beautiful broad lapels, and, you know, here's someone else wearing Tom Brown, and it's like, oh, his pants are a little short. That's pretty saucy. And then Alexander Skarsgård is there, and he's dressed like an evil karate nun. I did see a picture of you dressed as what appeared to be an evil karate nun. You look like $1 million, by the way. You look tremendous. Tremendous. I understand it was runway Calvin Klein.
Evil karate nun.
Yeah. Oh, no, it was like a drape, like a shoulder to ankle drape.
Can you write that movie for me?
Do you enjoy showing up to something in something spectacular rather than something modest?
Yeah, because I have a very limited wardrobe and privately. So, and I wear the same thing pretty much every day, and it's very monochromatic and quite boring in general. So I quite enjoy throwing on an evil nun outfit for a few hours here and there, or doing something that, like, to have some fun when you're actually going to go to an event like that. Yeah.
That is very Swedish of you to have that modest everyday wardrobe. When I was in Stockholm, I was struck by
the conformity.
But it's an intensely tasteful conformity. So when I was, you know, in a fancy neighborhood in Stockholm, the men were wearing very beautiful suits. It was not, you know, no one looked sloppy. Everyone looked like $1 million. But it was gray and blue.
Yeah.
You know, gray and blue.
Yeah.
And white.
I know, but it's tasteful, but whose taste is it? because they all look the same. So then it's like, it makes you feel like, well, clearly someone says, hey guys, this is what we're going to wear this spring. And then everyone looks that way. We need a bit more karate nuns in Sweden. I'm doing what I can to change things back home.
What's something that you've worn to an event that you're particularly fond of in retrospect?
I really I wore no pants to an event, and that was really nice.
What was the event?
I think it was the MTV Movie Awards. And then Sabrina Wu, who plays Pin Lee on Murderbot, paid homage to that by wearing the same outfit to the premiere here in New York. When I wore the karate nun outfit, Sabrina wore tuxedo top, no pants, shoes and garters. So I was very honored that Sabrina did that.
I can understand why you wore the garters. It would be embarrassing to be wearing no pants and have your socks sag.
Come on. Exactly. Got to keep it classy.
I have a computer in front of me, so I'm just typing in Alexander Skarsgård, no pants.
Oh, be careful.
Gonna class up my search history forever. Yeah. You know, look at this. And it's not a generous coat either. I mean, this is a slim silhouette and a short at the hips here.
Oh yeah.
This is a high traveling. Yeah, there's a high traveling leg thing. Does that make sense? A high traveling leg thing. There's a lot between the garters, and the bottom of your shirt and coat.
And then
There's
I'm wearing
more distance. Than
and then I'm wearing Jack McBraier's tighty whities.
Oh, what a legend, Jack McBrayer.
Yeah, legend.
You served in the Navy when you were a teenager.
Yeah.
Was that a compulsory service? And could you have like become a rural school teacher for a year or something like that instead?
It was the kind of the cusp of, it was late 90s. So it was the end of the Cold War, and Russia would never again be a threat to anyone. So we didn't really need a military, but it was technically still mandatory, but it was, again, on the cusp. So it was quite easy to get out of it, military service. I opted in. I knew I didn't want to be an actor. Again, I came from this like bohemian hippie family, and my way to rebel against that was to join the military, I guess. So yeah, I was joined this unit in the archipelago outside of Stockholm for a year and a half.
Why did you choose the Navy?
They basically recruited me. I was walking through this square in Stockholm, and they had these like recruiters out there and with pamphlets, and it looked like the coolest thing ever. It was like this unit where you got to wear a really cool hat, and you got to paddle a canoe and swim and dive and run and do cool things on islands, and it looked like some Rambo stuff. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I hated it.
My father volunteered for the Navy at about the same age as you. And what I remember him telling me is that when he got to basic training, the first night he was in the barracks or whatever, and he said he realized he had made the worst mistake of his life, that it was the wrong place for him to be.
For me, it was like, I exaggerate when I said I hated it, but I think it's different if you serve in the U.S. military because, and again, this was like in the late 90s, serving in the Swedish military in the late 90s, you know that you're not going to get sent somewhere where someone's going to shoot at you or where you're going to have to shoot at someone. So in a way, it was a very kind of selfish endeavor. I wanted to pretend to be James Bond for a year and a half, and this was like a really cool unit. So we were part of the Navy, but we were land-based, or like our job was to, from the small islands of the archipelago, protect the vessels in the archipelago. So it was kind of a lot of like small units running around on the islands doing, ops and stuff that was cool to a 19-year-old. In hindsight, I'm glad I did it. It was, I think it was a good experience for me, but at the time, yeah, it was definitely, I can't say I loved it, but I didn't join for any like patriotic reasons or because I loved guns, like far from it. It was just like, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And then I get this pamphlet in my hand. I was like, oh, this could be fun. And it's something people in my family didn't really do. So then I was like, well, then I'm going to go do that. That's how I motivated that decision.
Do you think that living in the neighborhood that you grew up in with your wife and several children in your house and other members of your family around you, do you think that you're able to give your kids the good parts of the childhood that you had?
Oh, I hope so. I think it's quite different from when I was a kid. Those elements of that I talked about, like that I found embarrassing when I was 13, I loved them when I was younger, and I loved them after those. It was just like those awkward years when, and I don't think I was very unique as a teenager in that regard, where I think it's just imperative to fit in and be normal, and you don't want your parents to be embarrassing. But what I loved about it was, and what I want to remember from that and bring on and bring forward to the next generation is, it was a household filled with love and a lot of respect, and that was really cool when I was a kid. How Dad and his parents, and Dad still does this to his grandkids, where he listens to kids, and he like really meets them on their level in a way, but it's like he's really intrigued by a 3-year-old and what the 3-year-old has to say. It's never like tap on the head and be like, "Oh, that's very sweet, little buddy. Like, now off you go to play." He's like, "All right, cool. Well, why do you think that?" And I know that my grandfather did that to my dad when he was a kid. And I think that's really admirable and something I try to remember, to kind of really like respect and listen to your kids.
Do you ever wear a caftan?
In a very weak moment, I bought one, and then I tried it on. I saw my father, and that, as much as I love him, I do not want to become him. So I took it off.
Alexander Skarsgård, thank you so much for your time. It was so nice to get to talk to you, and I enjoyed Murderbot so much. So
I really appreciate that, and I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.